We've all been on teams and had powerful people in our organizations and our lives, personally and professionally, that have shaped us. Sometimes for good and other times not so good. Yet the true leaders were those who have encouraged us and supported us, even developed us into our fullest potential. There has never been a larger spread between leadership and management in these days and times. People, especially millennials, don't want to be managed. With the shift in the pandemic, it has created a new landscape in our business ecosystem, and a new wave of leadership is going to have to take place that is different than it was before. Today, we'll discuss a variety of leadership throughout the we'll discuss from a variety of leaders throughout the hospitality industry and get insight as to how they're seeing this evolving landscape, the culture of their teams and development, as well as other considerations for you to explore, and how you and your leadership team can make a lasting impact, not only on your employees through this time, but ultimately how that translates out to your guests. Today, we have David Loisel, Todd Iacano, Hector Nunez, and Vincent Biro as leaders of this dialogue about the transformation of leadership in this new age and their perspective on it. Before I share the bios, the invitation is to listen powerfully, listen with new ears and an open mind, and take some notes on the concepts that resonate with you throughout this discussion. Our intention is to inspire action and have you take at least one impactful insight back to your organization that will make a lasting difference. Without further ado, we have joining us today, David Loisel. After graduating from Johnson & Wales, David spent over 20 years in operations and human resources with some of the world's best global hospitality companies, including Marriott, Four Seasons, and Levy Restaurants. For the last 5 years, David has helped venture capital and private equity fund companies achieve business results throughout best-in-class people practices and by building strong corporate cultures. In 2019, David founded Low High Talent Consulting and now focuses on supporting small to mid-sized hospitality and technology firms. His clients rely on his partnership and expertise to provide executive level human resources and people strategy and the support needed to create world-class careers that drive company performance.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here.
Thank you for joining. We also have Todd Iacano, concentrating his efforts on helping the teams develop, manage, and operate a number of key hospitality concepts located across Arizona and throughout the region. He brings more than a quarter century of hotel and hospitality expertise to the TNS lifestyle team. Along with a fresh, informed perspective, he utilizes his considerable industry knowledge and broad understanding of the local and regional lifestyle markets to the benefit of the True North projects and endeavors. Todd prides himself on maintaining a high level of integrity and transparency and helping the TNS lifestyle team create spaces that enhance communities and provide memorable experiences for those who visit them. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and apologize. I'm sitting outside because I've got 2 sleeping kids and a mother-in-law inside right now. So,
Mr. Hector Nunez is a hospitality professional joining us this morning with over 3 decades of experience in executive operations for luxury, boutique, and independent hotels, as well as senior living communities across multi-brands in the US, Mexico, as well as the Caribbean. In 2016, Hector founded HNB Hospitality Consultants, LLC, a consulting and operating company focused on luxury boutique hotels. Notable projects include the development of a certification program for the Mexican Tourism Bureau in the state of Guanajuato, I should be able to say this, I'm in Mexico, Guanajuato, which has certified more than 4,000 participants to date. Hector is also the COO of a non-for-profit cancer organization after surviving a battle with cancer himself, which provides personalized support to patients, survivors, and caregivers, creating the largest mentoring program of its kind. Bienvenidos, Hector.
Thank you for having me. All right, that was a good try. Guanajuato. It's called Guanajuato, the state of Guanajuato. That is good.
Claro que sí, lo siento.
Ajá, perfecto.
As well, last but not least, Vincent Pyro has over 30 years of operation experience at both the property level and corporate executive level. He has operated predominantly in the lifestyle and luxury sector for the last 24 years with both the branded and independent markets of the business. After getting an introduction to the consulting world back in 2010, Pyro formed VAP Hospitality Consulting in late 2017. The scope of offerings they include are from hotel performance evaluation, training, repositioning, operating, as well as service excellence. Pyro is known to be a cultural leader that creates positive morale through providing a teamwork approach while delivering a clear vision and goals, as well as expectations, while keeping accountability throughout his engagements. His clients are mostly third-party managers, hotel rates, and independent owners. Thank you all for joining us. We have awesome questions and dialogue ahead. I'm gonna pose one question at a time and we'll give a round robin. I know you guys have each got some amazing contributions and thoughts around these, so feel free to chime in. And if we go radio silent, I'll voluntold you to chime in. So with that, given the landscape of the current ecosystem and environment, how should leaders frame the current challenge? How should they be thinking about and looking and exploring leadership in this current challenge of the coronavirus pandemic? David, let's start with you.
Great. I'll start by taking it from the people perspective, mostly with the need for leaders to frame this challenge to employees in a way that they've never had to connect with their employees. And one thing that comes to mind to me is the importance of truly listening to what our employee groups are saying and hearing and being able to understand what they're feeling. So starting out with, the communication is we should be starting by listening to our employees, to understanding kind of what fear and anxiety they may have before we begin to respond to them, because this is uncharted territory for not only business owners and managers and leaders, but also for all those involved. And so to understand the perspective that others are in at this point is going to be a key spot. From there, I would really, encourage leaders to provide regular feedback. I think if their communication and how they are framing out this challenge to their employees is simply a one and done model, people will continue to hang on to that fear and anxiety. So creating a regular cadence, weekly, if not even daily, of informing employees and informing your staff kind of what you know today. And don't strive for perfection. It's okay if you give information based on what you have today to your employees to help them know where you're at and where you're going. And it might change tomorrow, and that's okay, as long as there's regular, ongoing information to help reduce that anxiety. So a few things that I would just highly recommend is that leaders understand what their base business case is. What is going to happen to our business in the midterm reality right now? What services are we going to offer and have open and available? What staffing are we going to need? Who is probably going to be able to work and not, based on that base case? And communicate that regularly to your employees. Run those scenarios about, if we get X number of guests by this date, what will our staffing need to look like and who will we be able to bring back? And again, communicate that to your entire employee base so you have the opportunity for them to step up and lean in. And then from there, if there are going to be significant changes, such as shutting down parts of the business, parts of a food and beverage operation, or shifting whole inventories of rooms or other services, communicate that in advance. Don't just shut things down and not let individuals know. So again, get in front of that, and then from there, allow the employees to really begin to focus their energies on some of those higher value outcomes. Let them recognize what's important to the customers and important to the business today so that they understand what their impact is and can stay engaged in that. And then finally, I'd say for leaders, going through this process and how they kind of get connected to their employees is don't forget the importance of being empathetic, being personal, and having consistent communication.
Awesome. Thank you. Lots to unpack there. Todd, additional thoughts?
We here in Arizona started to reopen, and right, wrong, or indifferent, that's the direction that the community's taken. And we had a hotel that was closed that we just were starting to reopen. We brought the staff back yesterday, and there's such a difference between a leader and a manager. We've all worked for those people where they say they're a leader because they have the title, and they just sit in their office and they work on whatever it is they're working on, and they come out for lunch, say hello, and go back to their office. They come out in the afternoon, grab a cup of coffee, say hello, and they go back to their office. And yesterday when we brought a bunch of our staff back, we're preparing the hotel to re-engage with the community. We did not only just an employee meeting, it was more of a rally, right? So we had all the senior leadership from the third-party management company that operates the building for us, myself, our main principal, and several other people that were there to celebrate the associates coming back, right? And we weren't really sure, is this something that should be celebrated or shouldn't it be? And my comment to that when we were discussing it was, listen, the worst thing we could do is open the door, have our general manager in there, and do a training with none of us there. And these people, when I apologize, the associates, there's a difference between a leader and a manager. The associates truly need to feel safe, appreciated, and like they belong. And they need to know what we're doing as a leadership group to make sure that they're safe, to make sure that our guests are safe, and that we communicate. David said it so importantly, that you communicate almost hourly, right? This is what's changing in the community. This is what's changing with this disease. This is what they're telling us what we need to do from a cleaning standpoint. And you're seeing all of these companies now come out, this is what we do differently, and this is what the new product that you need. And it's not so much about needing a new product. It's about being thorough. And one of the things that we did was, listen, a typical housekeeper is going to do 16 rooms, whether it's stay over, check out. And we're not really sure what the new procedure looks like and how much longer it's going to take them. But we've told all our housekeepers that everyone's going to start with 10 credits, and we're going to build from there, or maybe we're going to take away from there. We're not really sure. But let them know that it's not business as usual, and communicate what you're doing regularly, what's different. And I got to tell you, the associates that showed up and attended the meeting walked in very cautious, very much, what does this mean? Why am I here? Do I want to be here? It led to an incredibly engaged group of people that now understood what their new mission was and their new goal was, and they bought in very quickly. And err on the side of caution.
I love a lot of what you said in there. One thing that certainly strikes home is communicate regularly and thoroughly, but even more so being part of that active conversation. I remember going to Galvanize for a holiday party, and they brought people in from all over the country to this holiday party, but none of the leadership was there. And the morale and how that permeated throughout the organization in the coming months, we got to see, people leave. We got to see the direct implication of that. And so being able to have all the management hands on deck to be part of that conversation at this time is absolutely, leading by example, which is what is needed. So,
yeah. And we left that meeting with the mantra of be present. And I think that says a lot, whether it's, an hourly housekeeper, a bartender, a CEO, and everything in between. Just be present.
So as leaders, how do we decide what is essential versus what is needing to be abandoned or discontinued. When we're looking at our organizations and the priorities that we're having to face, we're not going to be able to handle all of these issues. So how are we going to go about really evaluating what's essential and what shouldn't be? Hector, do you have thoughts there from the operations standpoint?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's impressive what you guys doing, Todd. I'm glad that I was doing, for me to frame it. And right now, as you say, decide what is essential and what kind of is not is two very important things. I had the opportunity to close quite a few hotels based on hurricanes or any type of disaster. I was with Wilma, it was with Katrina and in Biloxi. So I did have an opportunity to be able to actually tell the staff and talk to them about what is coming, and how the process of closing it and what is going to happen while this storm is coming in. In this case, it is incredibly amazing how do we frame it, and I really do engage that conversation because it's crucial. This is a pandemic. This is not up to us. This is happening, and we need to make it happen. So, like David said, and really, I'm telling, maintaining communication with them, with the staff, it's crucial, though. But we know as leaders that is coming, and we are actually going to have to close. As like I said, like a little bit like the hurricane. In this case, was a decision that we took as a company to close. So before the mandate came in, we already have hotels closed, and that is it's really, really tough though, because you have to tell the staff, no, we not longer going to use you right now, and how do you frame that information is crucial. How to maintain, like Todd said, like David said, how to maintain that flow of communication is incredibly, incredibly valuable, because you not only maintain loyalty and you give them sense of belonging, that you actually are thinking of them and for them. And one thing that it is important is doing these conversations that you have when the hotel is closed. The idea to maintain that line of communication also for me is really important, because we're telling them that their future is not screwed up, is not lost, that we are maintaining the property, that we are going to keep it going, that their livelihood is not at stake. And that is kind of a difficult going with the same question about what is essential, what is not, and how do you send that email, that information. You are actually betting, as we all know, that this is going to go away. Gradually it's going to go away. But in the meantime, you do have to tell your clientele, yourself, first of all, and then your clientele, and most importantly for me, your staff, whoever you think you're going to start to bring in phase one, communicating. And so that is really alive. You have to portray the image that we're kind of open, but without guests and without staff, we don't worry about it. We will be here for you. And that is, for me, really, really important when you are close. And in the case of Todd, that right now that they go into the next phase in the reopening, it's going to be very interesting how everybody is going to be present all the time. That right now, all of the old ways are gone, and everything that we are putting together, the new protocols, all the training that we're doing for the staff. I don't know if we had the opportunity to train them while it was closed. Maybe you have to train them just a few days prior to the opening because you don't have any flow to be able to maintain that payroll, but you do have to maintain what it is important. And everything that I will discontinue in my scenario in small hotels, it's not relevant for either me or either my staff. I'm not talking about the guests right now. I'm talking about what is important to ownership, what is important to management, and what is definitely important for me, for the staff. Providing a safe environment where they're going to come and they're going to feel safe, that we are not, jeopardizing their life. Providing that actually we will continue with the business. Therefore, they need to put their best foot forward. So we have to create new experiences with all these new protocols. So it is, for me, those things are, for me, the most important at this particular stage. The one before closing, during the closing, And right now, I wouldn't get emails. There's other questions that we can talk, ones that you're open, like thought scenarios. But right now, just to frame it and to do what is important, that would be for me, my comment.
It's an interesting perspective, placing hierarchy in between the staff and what's going to provide the comfort and security and safety for them, that then they will permeate to the guests. And where does that sit in priority over even some of the guest needs? Vincent, what's the dialogue that you guys are having amongst your hotels, and how is that taking shape as far as what's essential, what's not, and where in that hierarchy those things reside?
I think it's a combination of what everybody just mentioned. I'll just add a couple different features or flavors to it. First thing is, more than ever, we've had these side conversations already, it's extremely important that the leaders of the building, the general managers, are self-aware enough to know where their strengths lie and don't lie. And if you do not come to the table with strong empathy skills or communicative skills, you have to be that much more ready to delegate them out, preferably to the HR leader. The HR leader, what I like to call the guidance council of the building, that role gets escalated tenfold right now. I always believe they should be the cultural leader in the building with the general manager, but even more so now. So there has to be an agreement on how you're going to communicate, who's doing the communication, and what does that look like before you go out there and start communicating the message at hand. The second thing I'd like to add is I think the properties and the counsel I'm giving now is the properties have to look at this, in my humble opinion, as a reopening. And I think Hector, I think everybody touched on that to a certain degree. I think Todd just did a nice job of that as well. What I mean by that more specifically is, at the end of the day, there should be, in my humble opinion, again, there should be a AM meeting and a PM meeting. And they're not about the financials. They're about the temperature, no pun intended or pun intended, maybe both. But how's the temperature? How did things go today? What's the day look like in the morning? Who's going up to check on the room attendants? There just needs to be much more hands-on TLC and communication, as everyone's mentioned earlier, in regards to how the day is going, what are the learnings, and what do we put in place tomorrow. So my advice would be for each leader to have an AM lineup and a PM lineup. Your staff meeting, which I believe should happen in normal times, that should be more of a therapeutic conversation as opposed to going over group resumes and BEOs, all the stuff that we can get through technology and through other types of communication. But that should be a pulse reading meeting. How are things going on a larger set, and where we're growing, where we're not growing, and how do we perform better as a unit. And then the last thing I'll add is that the EC is, the steering committee has to be meeting on a much more regular basis and taking the message out to the field and to the division, especially if you're working in a resort and properties that are very large that need that, communication from all angles, because it's too large to have one or two people sending the message at every stage of the day. So I'm basically just treating this like an opening of a hotel, making sure you're spending much more time recapping and revisiting what needs to be changed, and making sure that your team has time to be heard and is kind of a therapeutic session every week as a unit to grow together.
I think, I was fortunate enough to have a one-off conversation with Eric yesterday about how the owners are feeling about a lot of this. And, the one conversation that I had with the general manager of our hotel yesterday was, listen, you're going to be asked to sit on calls with banks. You're going to be asked to sit on calls with people that you're usually not at that level, because they want to hear it from the ground up. What's happening right now? And I said, from an ownership standpoint, the one thing that we can never learn is where we stand on the phone with the bank. Meaning, I don't want to hear it for the first time when the bank's on the phone, right? So how are we going to communicate that? And how are we going to talk about that amongst the group and deliver this message to our lender? Because the lenders are nervous, right? They've lent out 26, 36, in some case, $146 million, depending on the size of the building, that's at significant risk right now. So how are we going to make the lender from an ownership standpoint feel comfortable? And I think that's a whole nother topic of conversation that Eric and I kind of touched on yesterday. But it's important that that message gets out there as well. Once you move on, getting your associates comfortable and your management team comfortable, how are we going to communicate with our ownership and our lenders?
I'm gleaning a lot of this that is going to be essential is just what's going to keep the organization alive, morale high, money flowing, prioritizing those initiatives, and keeping a more real-time pulse on that to be able to adjust and adapt as a leader when you need to. And that's going to be the thing that will help us ride through these turbulent times. There's a lot of other shifts that are going on outside of the financials, outside of the boardroom, outside of housekeeping. There's several paradigm shifts, and my invitation is, what are the paradigm shifts needed for leaders through their current crisis phase and an extended anxiety period about this health and safety, as well as overall job security? What are some of the things that we should be having conversations and putting a little more time and energy and thought into as leaders? David, let's circle back to you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your survive and thrive concept.
Sure, thanks. I do think as leaders go through this change and this crisis, there is an approach that can be thoughtful and strategic, but a paradigm shift of, I may not have all the answers, and that's okay. And so there's a couple of behaviors, I think, that leaders within organizations can kind of shift from maybe how they've operated before as the person who has many of the answers, if not all of them, the person who is going to lead the strategy direction of the business through their experience. It's a little bit different now. And so some of the behaviors I would encourage leaders to take on to help them kind of shift how they handle this crisis is behavior one is to decide with speed over precision. Again, make quick decisions on what you're going to need to do so that you're not so far behind or not creating so much ambiguity in what we're going to do. So decide with speed over precision. Behavior two is about being ready to adapt boldly. There are going to need to be bold decisions made versus just like, let's just tweak a little bit. Let's move this a little bit that way. Or let's just, have 6 employees, not be here at work today versus maybe 50 because the business can't support that. So adapt boldly. Behavior 3 is about delivering reliably. This is you being consistent and not kind of hiding from the fact that there are decisions that need to be made and that you need to be one of the people who are out there delivering. So kind of to some of the other panelists' point of view is like being there as a larger team and being ready to deliver in conjunction with the rest of your operating team. And then behavior 4 is about engagement. And this is engaging for impact, meaning what is the most valuable thing you as a leader can do today to create the most impact with your teams, with your guests, and with your business. So decide with speed over precision, adapt boldly, reliably deliver, and then engage for impact. And it's a little bit different than maybe how we were operating in the past, where it was more well-balanced and long-term focused.
Todd, what are your thoughts for owners?
Again, whether you're a general manager, and our general manager is younger, it's his first GM job. I mean, it's only 127 room select service hotel. So how do we help guide him through this and communicate with him? Because the last thing you want to do is make it look like he's not in charge, right? So it's really important for me that I can sit with him and mentor him along the way. But the message has to come from him. People, like, I can't walk in the building and have people look at me as the asset manager and be like, well, hey, I need this or I need that and that, which is fine. But my first question to them should be, well, have you spoken to Sean? And if Sean's communicating properly, first of all, they're not coming to me, right? So it's my responsibility to ensure that, one, Sean is given the tools that he needs, and I'm leading him appropriately. And two, teaching him to communicate at a different level with ownership, which is something most general managers in this type of hotel aren't used to doing, right? You know, it's so many younger general managers are afraid to deliver bad news because they've never had to do it before. And, you know, my mantra has always been, bad news doesn't get better the longer you wait to tell it. Come to me with it first, and then we can deliver it together if need be, but you are going to deliver it because you're the keeper of the keys. And for their own growth, they need to learn how to do that. And, you know, and again, it's about also retraining owners. There's going to be things that they see when they walk into a hotel. Our owner's very eclectic, very energetic, your typical entrepreneur, right? Type of individual that has no barriers. They'll walk in and, you know, tell the busboy, listen, this is what I want over here, and set these tables differently. And then the manager walks in and says, oh my God, what happened to my dining room? And, you know, they're going to need to understand that there's going to be things there that they may not like a hand sanitizing station in the middle of the elevator lobby, right? Aesthetically horrible. Well, okay, maybe we put some plants around it, and maybe we do some things around it to make it a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But right now, the things that are going to make guests happy, employees happy, feel comfortable and safe are really what I need to communicate to the ownership group as well as our general manager, and say, hey, this is what we need to do for now. You know, before we used to serve wine in the lobby. Well, we can't do that right now. Why? Because it gathers people. And right now you don't want to gather people. So what are we doing differently, right? What are we doing differently from a breakfast experience? We're doing a knock and drop at every guest room once we start opening, so that we don't have people coming down into a restaurant and gathering. And so when you check in, it's about, hey, let's not focus on the fact that the restaurant is closed. Let's focus on the fact that we have this great, you know, restaurant food and beverage experience for you for breakfast, so that you don't have to come out of your room and you don't have to gather. But if you'd like to come down to the lobby, there will be some coffee available, and whatever that experience is. But, you know, there's a difference between delivering a piece of whole fruit and a croissant versus a warm breakfast sandwich and a glass of orange juice. And how do you do that safely? The cost isn't all that much different. And so we're including that in every reservation. And it's, again, about getting the public, the ownership, and the associates comfortable in their environment. I don't know that I answered the question, but it's just kind of went off on a tangent.
Oh, it's certainly a paradigm shift of how they need to, at least temporarily, you know, assess the situation and change their perspective and conversations internally and externally. Vincent, what are your thoughts around this? Any additional contributions or thoughts around, you know, how people should be changing their mindsets here through these uncertain times?
Yeah, I think two things come to mind that are paramount right now. One is, you have to be the leader, the captain of the ship always, right? But now it's emphatically important that you are with the team in the trench. So first and foremost, you need to be touching every single part of your hotel restaurant with the team, with the frontline staff on a daily basis, actually participating where possible. I think the team needs to feel the comfort that they're doing things right, that they're being protected, and that they're doing a good job. So more, you know, a great leader is going to do most of that periodically anyway. But most importantly, even if they're the leaders that need to write it down, they need to get out of their desk. I think Todd or David might have mentioned that some of these leaders, you know, from the past maybe were desk managers. Even more importantly now, they have to show the team that they're in the trench with them. And flipping to the other side, the ownership side, I think it's very, very important right now that when they do speak with the owner, more so than before we got into this terrible situation, they have to do that in a silo. What I mean is separate the team from the financials more than ever now. The team doesn't care about the financials right now. They care about life and death. And the more we can separate and not articulate what the owner's expectations financially are, the better for the short term, in my humble opinion, because at the end of the day, that will turn people off more than anything else. They don't want to hear about how much an owner is winning, losing, gaining, not gaining. That's the general manager's job in a dark room at 5 o'clock every day to have those tough conversations with the owner, but come out with their happy face and be in the trench with them on the floor or behind the scenes, wherever their jobs are, giving them the not false hope, but the hope that things are getting better and we're all in this together.
Hector, any other thoughts from a general manager operations standpoint? Anything that hasn't been said that should be brought up?
You guys, I think we have mentioned pretty much everything. It's really amazing what I had the opportunity also to have the same property owner and general manager. So when they are both present and very much present in property, what is exactly the messages that each one of them are sending to the staff? It is interesting. But I do agree with everything. I think for me, the insights are the messaging of not only being on the trenches. There is no more trenches anymore. You are in front of the house at all times. All the executive committee, everybody who is in leadership position, it's on the trenches right now. It's on the front of the house. It's talking to every single staff member. And by the way, it's not only talking though, it's going to be a completely different shift. We are in the culture of kissing, hugging, touching everybody. And right now we're separating everything. We need to lead with example. We need to be there for them. We need to explain in situ what they just done wrong or what they should done better. And this is the same with the staff and with the client, with the guest. The guest also needs to hear from you what is the new norm. And you guys are absolutely right. We're not going to talk about what is close. We're talking about what is new. Everything that it is new, what we're doing together, how are we creating this new amazing experiences now, and it is all in distance, all with just new protocols. And why do we carry face masks? What are we doing with and all of that? It's so kind of the antagonic. It's not exactly what we used to do. So us being in front and talking to, if we're the consultants, we're right there with them. If we're in the operations, we're part of them. So there is no distinguish between owners and managers if you're on property. And I completely agree with Vincent. If you don't have that conversation or if the ownership is not present, then you do have a very different conversations with them. And you have to have a very serious conversation to saying that if you're going to be out there, you're going to be out there as one of us. You're not the owner, the almighty. This is it. We are all one team. And there is a very nice Mayan saying that we use there to say hello. And it is it's a Mayan word that is called ilakesh, and you answer alaken. Ilakesh means I am other you, and alaken is you are other me. So you kind of saying hello to everybody in that way. I am just another you. You are just another me. We are together in this. We will do this together. And we send that message also to the customer. I believe that it is going to have a very positive impact. This is a new way of talking, new way of saying, new way of being. So why not include all of us as one? We are here to take care of the guests, but at the same time, we're here to take care of the staff. At the same time, we are here to take care of all of us at the same time. For me, that continued message is needed.
And that can be hard for some people to have those conversations, to be able to balance and bridge that, authentic but meaningful delivery of what might be tough to say but it is necessary. It's the difference between kind and nice, and yet essential. We've been talking around it somewhat, and you guys alluded to this a little, but there clearly needs to be, a balance in between telling the truth and the reality of the situation while simultaneously inspiring associates. What for you have you seen, or are you entertaining conversations with your clients around that has worked and what didn't in this dialogue of really being able to share the implication of the truth and reality of the situation in a powerful yet authentic way?
I take a stab at that.
Please, David.
One thing I would say is let's learn from what others are doing, both not so great examples of communicating difficult messaging or being really open and transparent, but also really great examples. So if everyone hasn't yet thoroughly read the letter from the Airbnb CEO to his employees about laying off 25% of their staff, which it doesn't get much more difficult than that, I would say read it, but pick it apart for the pieces, not necessarily what he said, but how he said it. There's some really, really great best practices in how you can be open and truthful, but also still inspire. And so a few things I took out of that framework was, one, about being truthful, but based on what you know today. So put the information out there, but recognize that it might shift. Two, communicate the how and why, not just the what. Not just saying, here is what we're going to do differently, but how you got to that decision and why it's important. That is something that can be direct and truthful, but can help inspire people to understand and rally behind that. The next is to kind of share a little bit about what the midterm looks like, meaning here's what we're having to do today and tomorrow, and the tough decisions around that, but also share what your hope for the long term looks like. And again, you can be optimistic, but be truthful. And that is about letting individuals on your team and the people in your community know that there is a future here, and here's how I see it playing out. Again, might not be 100% accurate, but inspire people to look forward. And then I think important to be very clear about what is to happen next, the action steps. So if we're talking about truth and reality of today, here's what it means, and here's what we're going to do over the course of the next 2 or 3 weeks, and include a time frame and stick to that time frame so that your employees are sitting back and saying, what does this mean to me? I now know what the next few weeks look like. And from there, revisit it, kind of revisit that cycle 3-4 weeks down the road when things have changed a little bit. Be truthful, communicate why, share what now the mid and long term may look like that might be different, and let everyone know what's happening next for them.
Todd?
David, I love that comment. Be truthful, but inspire. I don't think there's anything more important right now. We can deliver a message and that sounds so differently just based on your tone of your voice and your body language and what the message really is. And then again, you're right. Repeat it and go back to it in 3 weeks and show the progress of the goal that you set when you were communicating. Our goal is to drive our occupancy to 40% so that your friend David can come back to work, whatever that goal is. But show the progress towards that goal on a daily, weekly, monthly basis until you can grow your business back to where it was. As much as we all want to say that this is going to go away, and it is, but it's going to take some time, and it's going to take a lot of time for us to get back to where we were. And I don't think you skirt that when you communicate it, but it's also a way to communicate it in a sense that says, hey, you know what? 10 days ago, guys, we were closed. Today we're open at 23% occupancy, and we've got a bunch of you and your friends back to work, and we're all in this together. And, you see our general manager's name is Sean. You see Sean up on the floors working with everybody and talking to everybody and inspiring where we're at. You see the sales team going out and talking to people and bringing people back into the hotel. So important to focus on what's happening in a positive nature. You don't want to give false hope. The other message is, okay, this is where we were, where we are. This is where we want to be, but this is where I need your help because this is where we're struggling. And how do you communicate that with, we have a challenge in front of us, not a problem, it's a challenge. And it's an effort that's going to be combined amongst all of us to make sure that we're successful, and maybe you lay out what success looks like. Success doesn't necessarily have to mean that we achieve budget, because that's thrown out the window. Success may look like last week we were at 12%, and this week we're at 14%. So set the expectation and make sure that the expectation is achievable, especially in the beginning. The last thing you want to do is walk into a meeting 10 days after you're reopened and focus on not achieving a goal.
Hold on a second for because this is, I'm as we all been doing nothing but reading new protocols and everything that we are going to need to implement now in the reopening of any establishment, pretty much. But one of the, and some of them are incredibly detailed, you know, the CDC's, WHO's, I mean, seriously detailed, great videos that we have been shared about all the new protocols and how are they gonna not clean but disinfect everything. It's just impressive. It is really impressive. But right now, I'm just thinking on my staff and possible the small clients, customers that they're gonna be going in. The idea for me to, like, for example, Todd, the success for me, I wouldn't be talking about percentage of occupancies anymore. Like finances, it's not important. It is not important for the staff. You know, how much, if we have a lineups in the morning and in the afternoons and the overnights, whatever we do, talking about occupancy, I will talk about every single guest by name probably. If I have a big hotel, probably it's going to be hard. But right now, I really would like to bring everything down to earth. It's a communication that we have, talking among each other and talking with the staff about each other. We're talking about one of the protocols. It allows you to keep your room vacant 72 hours before you bring the next one. Yeah, right. Tell that to a 25-room hotel or a 30-room hotel or a 40-room hotel. It's just impossible to do that. So instead of talking about occupancies, because it's going to be hitting so hard, let's talk about how many we have in-house, how many people we have in-house, who are they, and what are they, how do we actually approach them in our safe distancing, and how do we clean their rooms, and what is the message that we're giving to these staff, though? I keep on thinking that I believe that the industry will come back, and this forum is not talking about the marketing, or not talking about revenue management, and we're not talking about what is the strategy for us in the future in how we're going to keep on bringing the business. Right now, I think it's survival, it's communication, it's brotherhood, it's a new way of doing business, it's talking to the customer what is new, what is amazingly new, because now we're going to say that it is incredible. These new containers, biodegradable, and we're not, it's a new reality though. So not different whatsoever with the staff. And guess who has to learn it first? We do. And then we have to learn it with the staff together. So yes, we're in the floor all the time and we're learning all the time about it. We're not talking about financials. We're talking about, did you hear this happen? Do you know that this could be better? Are we doing this? Have we tried this new product? Are we did this? We following this protocol? Whatever that might be. But believe me, we have a lot to talk to the staff every single day about everything that it is new. So creating a new stigma, creating a new way of doing the hellos in the morning, man. I mean, you know that in Mexico we kiss to say hello. Forget about the shake hand. It is just a big hug, a kiss. And, well, this is not only in Mexico, but in many countries. So how are we going to keep that and to keep that alive in a different way? You know, instead of the hugging and the kissing, what is going to be the elbow? But all of that new stuff, I can't wait. Actually, it excites me because it's new. Excites me for me to be with the team. Excites me to be in the floor with them and to teach this and the customer what is the new reality. For me, those are it's incredible timing for us to be able to learn this and move forward to another level of experience that we are going to start selling.
These are great actionable insights for us to be able to glean and implement it's a lot. There undoubtedly is a lot of change, a lot of conversation, a lot of ownership that's going to be able to be had. We're asking a lot more of our employees, our staff, our leaders. And with that, we're in a different time where the ability to incentivize, to reward these people for all of the additional discretionary energy and effort and the like is going to need to be compensated, rewarded in some new fashion. We might not have the budget or the incentives that we used to have, but it's still going to be really important to be able to acknowledge our staff and those that are making a concerted effort to contribute towards this development, towards reshaping the culture. What are your guys' takeaways about new ways, new abilities to be able to deepen that bond and recognize and reward the staff while we might not be able to give them the monetary compensation we otherwise would have? I'd be remiss if we didn't cover that aspect of how does this end of the day get into the hearts, minds, and souls of the staff in a new way that we're recognizing them. What are your guys' thoughts? Any kind of last comments and takeaways about how we shift and change the recognition?
If I can make a comment, Eric, I sent you a message as well. One of the things, I had several conference calls this week, and in many occasions, the staff comes up at least at last of what do they feel. I mean, there's a big insecurity within our staff, within the staff, because of the transmission of the COVID-19. What happens to me? What happens when there's a guest who's feeling well and he might be carrying the COVID-19? How do I approach this? Wait a second. If I don't feel comfortable approaching this guest because he's coughing, sneezing, whatever he's doing, how do you deal with? How should I deal with this? There has to be a very strong guideline for staff. Also, before it was quite common when somebody had a runny nose or sneezed a little bit, he could come into work. That was not a problem. It was actually, if you wouldn't come to work, they would say to you like, "Hey, what's up, man? You just went a little cold." So how tolerant are we going to be in the future if somebody has a cold, or if somebody in his family has a cold? Should he report that? All those kind of things, I think, are very important to put on the table and to share with the staff. I mean, Todd has been mentioning about the young general managers, that it's very difficult to bring bad news across. Yes, I'm totally agree. And I think it's also for our staff. It's very difficult to say that something is not good at our house, or that there is somebody sick at home, or they themselves are not feeling well. So those things we definitely have to take into consideration and see how we explain that to our staff.
Can I elaborate on that? I think I had some very similar talking points, and to kind of summarize that, I do think during kind of the midterm reality coming out, a way to show our employees the appreciation for the work they do is kind of through compassion, safety, and flexibility. And you were hitting on a lot of that. Compassion on really understanding the position they're in and providing them tools and resources. Safety, recognizing that they're putting themselves in a position where they could be exposed, but having a really strong focus on that as an organization. And then finally, that flexibility piece. We need to encourage people, if they need to stay home, they should stay home. We need to not shame them as maybe could have felt in the past. We need to be encouraging the flexibility. And some of that flexibility might also be towards working within different roles and kind of flexing your skill muscle in different ways within the organization. This helps employees understand that that there's a commitment to them. I think a little bit more long-term might be in the way in which we as organizations and leaders instill the career stability and trust in the organization. So career stability is probably going to be a very big way to get loyalty from employees in the future, because of the quick the amount of furloughs and layoffs that had to happen during this time frame, and frankly the amount of people who are unemployed, if we can look a little more long term on how we build career stability, or how we at least prepare people for instability, can be key. So short term, compassion, safety, flexibility; long term, career stability, trust, and transparency. Those are ways in which we can keep our associates engaged and appreciated.
Todd or Vincent, other thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that was said. I think inspiration comes from different ways. I think you have the obvious inspirational leader that is vocal and upbeat and gregarious by nature, which our industry thrives off of. And then I think there's inspirational leaders that lead by example. They're in the trench with the team. They're the first in, last out. And I think all of those things will show the team that you're leading by example. And I think that's going to go a long way. All of these attributes are really what you need in normal times. There's just a bigger spotlight on it right now. And if there ever was a time to say the strong will prevail, it's now. And I think, I think at the end of the day, this is really going to separate the boys from the men, the women from the girls, whatever term you want to use in regards to leadership. But I really believe at the end of the day, like a lot of people saying in their personal lives, they've had somewhat of an epiphany, or they've had a new way of looking at things. Well, this is a great time to reflect, on how you run your business, but more importantly, how you lead as a leader. And I think a lot of that's going to come out in the wash when this is all said and done, and a new level of expertise, not a new level, a more sophisticated level of expertise is going to be in demand moving forward when we get to whatever we call the back to normal scenario.
Express a concern right now also in many markets. So absolutely, totally agree with all of you in the way of having an emotional support and recognition to the staff, especially with new protocols. My concern right now would be that some of us might take advantage of the situation, the employment situation, knowing that there's a gazillion people out there looking for jobs, and I'm really hoping that actually leaderships come up to a point where we don't take advantage of that it is not now for the benefit of the company or the benefit of me, or, now instead of paying you this, I'm going to pay you that. And if you don't like it, that's the door. I'm going to have a million people behind, whatever. This is not an opportunity for make money out of this. This is not an opportunity for us to leverage the new ways. We have positions that in many hotels we don't have. Our quality managers we call it the other day, the safety and security managers. We're going to have a lot of new positions that are going to come up, and we also have a lot of people that we can train to do those new positions too. So there is so much that we can do for good, just for good. Not taking advantage that right now you open the window and there's going to be a line of about 1 billion people trying to get in, and you're going to pick the ones that you pay the least, or it's not this time. This is not the time for that. So if I wouldn't have a gigantic microphone to tell as millions people as leaders as possible, it's exactly this. This is not the time for you to take advantage. It's totally the opposite. It's the time for us to build the community. It's the time that you actually gonna make sure that you win the trust, the stability, the loyalty that you actually gonna create out of this. So me coming in with a boss and have his foot or her foot on my throat is not the time. And I'm really hoping that those, as we said, as Todd mentioned too, as Vince mentioned, as all of us, hopefully those guys vanish and disappear from the face of the earth, But in this leadership, in these times right now, we need the opposite, man. We did absolutely the opposite, creating opportunities. It's the right message for me.
One last piggyback on that, if I may, because it struck my thought process when Hector was mentioning about not profiting and so on and so forth. Is once again, all of these attributes and features I really believe are needed in every type of scenario, but there's a spotlight on it now, even more so. But what comes to mind in that regard is always one, hopefully only one, maybe more, Debbie Downers Negative Nillies, they can't be in that environment. They absolutely need to be weaned out as soon as possible, as fairly as possible. I'm not talking about people suffering from the emotion of the circumstance. I'm talking about, unfortunately, there are certain people that thrive off negativity. And those people will bring down everything we just talked about, everything we just spoke about, quicker than you ever could imagine in a time like this. So I would really focus and put my emphasis on making sure that everybody's on the same page, but there's no one there taking the team down a notch, because unfortunately that's their lifeline. So we all know people that we're talking about. We've all experienced them in our careers. More important now, more so than ever, that is just not part of your environment moving forward.
I'd be remiss if I didn't add to this. Sorry, this is such a great topic. I do think, to Hector's point, we shouldn't be looking to take advantage of people coming back into the workforce. I do believe, however, we need to be thinking differently about how we bring people back into the workforce. And to your point about not maybe bringing back negative Nellies, the staff that we had yesterday may not be the same staff we have tomorrow. And I would recommend, rather than just bringing back roles, you're bringing back skills. And those skills should be around optimism, resilience, autonomy, over can they clean 16 rooms. It should be a different profile in many roles, especially in leadership and management roles.
Couldn't agree more. Culture is going to be essential to be able to make it through the other side. Todd, final thoughts to conclude this and wrap this up. Any other best practices in regards to how to, empower, reward, recognize your employees in a different way tomorrow than we have in the past?
Don't ever underestimate the power of a free lunch or a free meal, or just the opportunity to spread people out and break bread with them, right? And let them know that you're there with them and you're right by their side. And it's someone. Hector talked about now's not a time to look at dollars, and that's always a double-edged sword, but it costs you nothing to bring in some burritos or some pizza, or we actually will, prior to all of this, we would do a potluck once a month amongst all the associates, and everybody would make a meal from their native homeland, because there's such a melting pot industry of people. Maybe that's not what you do now, because people, they haven't worked and they are strapped, and you don't want to ask them to go out and cook for your coworkers. But maybe it's leadership, right? It's the steering committee that is coming in and bringing things from their homeland, or that are regionally done. And it's a mixed message, because you're now hurting people, but there's a way to do it responsibly. And I think it sets a great example of how you can get together responsibly and just feel good about what's happening. And because there's been so much of, just as someone said earlier, doom and gloom. You don't want that there's no room for it. And it's just a time right now to rally around people and be positive, because there's going to be a lot to be positive about. It's just going to take us time to get there.
Wonderful. Well, we have covered a lot of information here on new principles of the landscape and leadership around hospitality and at large going forward. Some great takeaways. Hopefully you guys jotted some down and are going to be able to take at least one or two of these back and implement them. This recording will be available. We'll put it on YouTube to share with the rest of your team, to be able to have them view this and take their own insights away and see what resonates with them. You can be able to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more information and get involved in the community and share your own voice and perspective.